So I've had a comment on another platform that was asking, like, why we never really focus on Yeshua's death. And I'm going to see if I can kind of do this from memory. But the Christian church and everywhere else, the Catholic Church, the Whore of Babylon, all this stuff, like, they all want to focus on his death because they think that's the gospel. They think 1 Corinthians 15, 1 through 4, the DBR, the death, burial, and resurrection of Yeshua, is the gospel. It's not. It's not even close to being the gospel. And it was written this way on purpose to separate the tares from the wheat and the sheep from the goats. You need to focus on his life and what he taught and preached and did. Look at the scriptures and weigh and see how many more scriptures there are about what he did and taught versus his death. There's a handful about his death, and there are hundreds about what he taught. So what Yeshua accomplished from his death was that he renewed the wedding contract with the people. We broke his covenant. And when you break a covenant, you have to understand Hebrew weddings. You have to understand the wedding terminology, because all this is written metaphorically and idiomatically with the wedding. It compares it to a Hebrew wedding of a husband and a wife. And what happens in the law, you need to look in the law, Deuteronomy, probably, I think it's Deuteronomy, maybe Leviticus, where it talks about marriage and how it works. And that by death, it's the only way the other person could be remarried. So we broke his covenant. We cheated on God, went whoring after the pagan gods, and we slept with them, and we broke the wedding vows. So he divorced us. He divorced the nations. He divorced Israel. So the only way to get remarried again back to the people he originally wanted was death. That was Yeshua. When he did that, it was the times of refreshing. He refreshed the wedding contract. That's Isaiah 28:12. The times of refreshing, yet they would not hear. Who's they, and why won't they hear? He came to magnify and make honorable the law. Isaiah 42:21. It's what he did in Matthew 5. When you read Isaiah 61:52, maybe 60, Romans 10, verse 15, I think. It's all talking about good tidings, which is fresh in the Strongs. Refreshed covenant. Then when you understand that Yeshua had to die for the sins of the world, the sacrifice, he took the sins of the world on himself. This is Colossians 2:14, which is quoting Deuteronomy 30. Colossians 2, actually it is. It's Deuteronomy 31:24, but you understand that those handwritten ordinances that were against us, that he did away with, was the sacrificial law. It was the law that was placed on the outside of the ark. Again, learn the difference between the sacrificial law and Mount Horeb, the Ten Commandments. We were given the Ten Commandments first, orally agreed, and immediately broke them. Immediately cheated on God with another pagan god, Baal, which is Satan. They were actually worshiping Satan. It's always Satan. All of them point back to Satan. So then the sacrificial law was introduced, and it was put on the outside of the ark to represent its temporarity, like it was temporary. So when he died, he renewed the contract, allowed us to come back in the covenant. That's why we focus so much on what he taught, because him dying was just the way it was established for us to get back in the covenant. But what do you need to focus on? What he did to, like, why he died and what it did. That's what we focus on. That's what everybody's supposed to focus on. That's what every single apostle and Paul and everybody else wrote about, was what he taught us to follow, what he taught us to uphold. You know, all this stuff was meant for this. You've got other verses in Matthew and Luke and Romans 2 that talk about the gospel of God and about the good tidings and the refreshing. You know, this is like Deuteronomy 18, 15, 18 or 18, 15. I can't remember. Look up both of those anyways. It talks about the capital P prophet that was going to come and fulfill all things that were written about him. So the testimony of Yeshua is spirit of prophecy. Spirit of prophecy is knowing prophecy. It's the entire prophets and the Psalms were written about Yeshua. The Psalms are actually, if you really get to reading them, the Psalms are, it's like written in a first person writing where Yeshua is like, it's like a blog, right? Literally the Psalms, most of the Psalms are like a blog that Yeshua is writing about himself in like a diary. It's what it is. Everybody thinks they're from David, but they're not. They're about Yeshua, the Messiah. So that's what we're in. And this is where the church goes wrong too, is they think we're in the new covenant. They don't understand, because they haven't really read with discernment what the conditions of the new covenant are. And they can't see that it's very clearly not happening yet. We're in the times of refreshing, yet they would not hear. So, they're not listening to this. They're not listening to our message. You cannot bust them out of that strong delusion because of their idolatry. Their idolatry is what's keeping them stuck in that 2 Thessalonians 2:11 strong delusion. Because they wanted to believe a lie, God gives them, hands them over to it. Strong delusion. If they would just humble themselves, realize they don't have the answers, realize they could actually be wrong, they would be able to see. And it even says in 1 John not to pray for those that are in idolatry. Think about that for a minute. You're not even supposed to pray for those people. The only thing we pray for those kind of people is that they would come to the actual truth of like saving salvation. So hopefully that has kind of answered your question a little bit. Go back and research, read the scriptures I have quoted, piece them together, because the Bible is a big giant puzzle. We have to piece it together, here a little, there a little, line upon line, precept upon precept, commandment upon commandment, 10 commandments. Then you'll start seeing. Once you piece all these scriptures together by the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, let a matter be established. You've got enough scriptures there to establish a matter. So, you know, I think it was, what is it? Yeah, it was when Yeshua cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me? Or no, I'm sorry. It's when he cried out, it is finished. That's Deuteronomy 31:24. He was quoting that, till it was finished. What he did on the cross finished the sacrificial law. You're no longer under. Not all the laws, the sacrificial law. You still are under the commandments, and this is where people get messed up with Paul. Paul didn't distinguish between the law and the commandments. He just called it all the law. It was done on purpose to weed those out, because they think, oh, look, it's all of it. No, it's not. It's the sacrificial law that was done away with. It's temporary. We're in the refreshed Holy Covenant, the Holy Covenant, 10 commandments. So when you read Paul, you have to understand his thorn was more than likely the fact that he knew that his words were going to send a lot of people to hell, because they twist the scriptures to their own destruction. So you need to be able to differentiate when he's referencing law, which law he's actually talking about. Like take Romans 7 and 8, for example. I've done a video of this. Romans 7 is talking about the law. Romans 8 is talking about the law. Romans 7 is talking about sacrificial law. Romans 8 is talking about after coming into covenant, the Holy Covenant, the commandments. So hopefully this will help you.